My favorite part of Mondays is checking in with my main man, Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports and you pod to win the game. This week, Chuck is joining us from Arlington, Texas. He was at Cowboys 30, Jets 10 more specifically. I read your column. I read your piece. Have we talked about this before? Don't you love when people say, hey, I read your piece? And that's it. They just leave it there. They don't tell you what they thought of it. Hey, I read your column. Like,
maybe you don't want to know what they thought. maybe I'd rather just know that you read it. And I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah, great. Okay. There's a click. I'll take the click. But no, I read it. It was good as usual. And it was there was some guarded optimism on your part, understandably so, about how good these Cowboys look. I'm more on the side of skeptical, just because we've seen talented Cowboys teams before. But I'm not one of these clowns that get on television and clown the Cowboys for clicks or for likes or engagement. That's not part of my brand, if I have a brand. But as far as the Cowboys go, it's really more about the opposition, and it's about seeing them against San Francisco. And you and I have talked about this, about San Francisco having their number, being in their heads. Meanwhile, the Giants for 6 quarters looked awful. The Jets, we know what their problem is. So expound on your column, if you don't mind. Just how good are these Cowboys really? And does it even matter at this point how good they are, given all that can happen and we've seen happen the rest of the season, specifically when it comes to this team?
Yeah, I mean, look, what you referenced is there. It's a built-in argument, right? Like the Giants have looked awful, even making the playoffs last year. I think we all kind of agreed. It's a jelly-filled donut without jelly in it. There's a hole in there somewhere, and we're not quite believing in that team as a playoff team last year. Okay, so they get trounced 40-0. The Giants do on the road. Dallas absolutely wipes them out. But then they follow it up in their own home opener against a Jets defense that is legitimately great. It is a great defense. And they got killed. They got wiped out by the Cowboys in a fashion where the Cowboys did not look uncomfortable offensively at any time. Mm-hmm. CeeDee Lamb, now granted, Sauce Gardner wasn't traveling with him, but CeeDee Lamb, to me, when you watched him, you're like, that's an elite number one. He's getting open anytime he wants.
No, I'm giggling because why is Sauce out here deleting his entire Twitter or X account over some CeeDee Lamb stats that may or may not be attributable to him? It's like, all right, man, is it that bad already? You know,
and a lot of them aren't. That was the thing. It's not like he was traveling with them the whole night. So to me, the comfort level of Dak, kind of watching that, Tony Pollard making sense in the backfield, the way we always knew Tony Pollard would make sense if they had just committed to a dynamic running back, right? Even with some offensive line injuries, being a little banged up last night on the line, never really looking overwhelmed by that front. The Jets made their plays. Quinnen Williams is Quinnen Williams. But still, it was just, there was never a point in which it did not feel like the Cowboys weren't in control, both offensively and defensively, during the course of that game. And to me, they turned Zach Wilson over 3 times. They forced a fumble, the Dalvin Cook fumble. But also when you look at just the overall dominance of a player like Micah Parsons, I mean, nobody can handle him now. They're throwing doubles, they're throwing triples at him. So I think it's the level of dominance in terms of the defense, the fact that there's talent at every layer, the complete comfort of the offense, and everything fitting together. By the way, you didn't have Brandon Cooks, their number 2 wideout. They're using a lot of young guys. It just feels, I literally went, and I've seen the Cowboys a lot. And I was down in the tunnel and I'm kind of watching them all walk off and they're all comfortable. None of them are hooping and, there's no hooting and hollering over this win. It was just sort of like, we took care of business tonight. And Clarence Williams, Chili came down and I turned to Chili and I said, look, man, I gotta be honest with you. This is the first time I've watched this team in all these years, even going back to the 2017 that was supremely talented, where I'm like, this might be it. Like this finally might be the one that actually fits together, right? Because everything about this,
it feels like they check all the boxes. It do feel like they check all the boxes. And speaking of checks, honestly, I got to check myself. Because as I listen to you and as I think about what I just said, it's like doubting Dallas is just such low-hanging fruit. And you play who you play. Like the Giants' problems or their flaws, and certainly the Jets' flaws, that's not Dallas's problem. And Dallas can't apologize for that. Like, you know, and if the opposite had happened, we would be clowning Dallas. If they had struggled or lost to the Giants or lost to the Jets, we got jokes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And what do the elite teams do, right? I mean,
they beat the shit out of people like they should.
They vet 100%. 70 to 10.
Right.
Okay.
Because they get paid too.
Just beat the hell out.
They get paid too, right?
And that's what they, you know, so like to me, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understand the Giants and I get Zach Wilson. I get it. I totally understand where people are coming from. But if you're elite, you kill them. And they did.
Right.
They just went out and killed them. And they did not, again, the comfort of it was crazy.
Right. And they can't play January games in September. They can't play last year's or the last 30 years postseason games again. It's like they can play what's in front of them. And so far, they've by far and away been the most impressive team against other professional football teams, full stop. So Dallas is good. We'll see. Meanwhile, what we've seen from the Jets, has it gotten that bad already? Like it went from, oh, wait a second, they did beat Buffalo with Zach Wilson to giving the ball to Breece Hall 4 times, which he should bitch and complain about that. Because it's like, I don't care what the score is, your best bet is to not ask Zach Wilson to throw the ball against that defense. Like, that is professional malpractice on the part of the Jets to only give Breece Hall the ball 4 times and to abandon the run that way when the running in defense is the only way you're even going to keep games close. It may be your best mechanism for coming back because you cannot count on Zach Wilson stringing together enough throws to keep that game close. So, like, is it already coming apart with the Jets? We talked about Sauce Gardner deleting his account. We saw the tweets and the comments from, or the deleted tweet, and the comment from Breece Hall. Is it already over for New York? Because I was trying to hold out hope that they could hold it together without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, like the Sauce deleting his account, I can tell you kind of, I have a little inside perspective with it. I think the Jets are just are tired of seeing what happens with their social media accounts when everybody jumps on the bandwagon, and then as soon as something starts to go wrong, or, you know, granted, Aaron Rodgers is just catastrophic. I don't think they want that in their face to just see then everyone instantly jump off and say, here we are, we're back in where it was last year. Zach Wilson's terrible. This team sucks. Like, blah, blah, blah. We hate me. Like, you can only live with so much negativity. And at some point, you got to shut that down. And I think that's why. Yeah. And I don't think Sauce will be the last. I think you'll see other guys completely check out of social media. And I don't blame him. You know, so let's do half empty, half full here, right? With the glass. Half full, it was a tough assignment. Like, and Josh Allen, go ahead. Go look at Josh Allen this week versus what Josh Allen looked like last week. Okay. Mm-hmm. They made Josh Allen look like a fool in week 1, that being that the Jets made Josh Allen look like a fool. Well, now you got Zach facing basically what Josh Allen faced last week in the Jets. The Jets absolutely dominated Buffalo up front. And then in this game, Dallas dominated the Jets up front. It was the same scenario with 2 different quarterbacks, but facing sort of the same scenario in front of them.
Sure.
Well, you know, Zach got totally disassembled against what is going to be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in football over the course of this season. I understand Josh Allen gets all the runway because it's Josh Allen and everything, but I don't think we just look at Zach and go, okay, this terrible performance against a dominant defense up front who destroyed the offensive line up front.
Who just made Daniel Jones look foolish the week before.
Right, make Daniel Jones look foolish. I mean, do we just say, nope, that's it? They're automatically, the front office, the coach staff's going to revert back to 2022 and say, Zach made no progress. He's not anything we thought, you know, blah, blah, blah. No, I think he'll get another week, okay? I think they believe in him enough to know this was a bad assignment. He drew a bad situation. All right. Cowboys home opener. Now, does that mean they won't go out and look at quarterbacks? Yes, they will.
I'm about to say, you said another week. Okay.
Yeah. Well, again, you're not going to – I don't think you overreact to this. But if you have weeks like this that pile on top of each other, at some point then you have to go, can we scheme our way out of this? Can we legitimately run it 40 times a game? shorten the field for him, ask him only to throw it 15, 18, 20 times and just win with defense and running the football. And if the answer to that is it's going to be a tough road to hoe, and we can't have, any injuries or any of these things, and we're likely putting ourselves in, we're on the fringe of the playoffs, then you have to go, is there a veteran out here who can help us? And you start to look beyond this. Now, in terms of veterans that I think they could look at,
who not only who could help them, but who's actually available. Because people love to point to Kirk Cousins. Right. My man got a no trade clause for a reason. It's not as simple as just like people have to like throw shit out there and see what sticks. It's like most of the time it doesn't stick, right?
Well, and there's financial implications of it, which I think they could make some things workable. There's the implications of what does that now mean for, even if you go and you get Kirk Cousins, which would be a rental till the end of the season, like what are the internal, like when Rodgers, is Rodgers coming back into the building? Is he going to be in that quarterback room? Are he and Kirk working together? What does it do?
Right,
I mean, you're done probably with Zach at that point. Like at that point, you're like, all right, we've now chosen other options multiple times over you. And, you're pretty much toast. So, I think there's a lot of implications. You could also look at, it's funny because like in the ether, you hear Chad Henne's name come up and people are going to go, Chad Henne, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. It does make sense because he and Hackett have a background together going all the way back to Jacksonville. He was very good in support of Patrick Mahomes. He's played in a pinch as a starter when he's had to. He's been on Super Bowl winning teams.
So the more realistic avenue is somebody that's stabilizing, not spectacular. Is that a decent way of putting it?
Right now. Now, if they're sitting there and the trade deadline's approaching, and let's say they're floating around the 500 mark, and the front office believes we just need something to get us to the postseason so that Aaron can come back. That's another thing too that complicates this, right? Because Aaron had that fast bridge surgery, right, on his Achilles. And this idea of like, could he push to get himself back for the postseason if they make it? Well, if you go get a Kirk Cousins or someone of that ilk,
and he gets you to the postseason, you ain't pulling the plug.
And he gets you to the postseason. What are you doing? Right. Then you're going to go, sorry, thanks. Yeah. Now we're going to it's really complicated. The least complicated option right now is let's see Zach again, and let's just see if Dallas was a horrible draw for him and move forward from there and see if maybe we can build.
Yeah. No, I would say I said the least complicated option is to simplify that game plan like you referenced a little while ago and just run it no matter what. Just don't ask the kid to do
I don't disagree.
He's somebody he's not. Yeah. Don't ask him to do somebody he's not. So last week you called week 1 a fantastic liar. I guess the moral of the story for week 2 is it's probably not, specifically with the Jets, it's probably not as good or as bad as it seems. So let's kind of go down the list of these 0-2 teams, and I want to take your temperature on the level of panic and see if we're in agreement here. I'm gonna start with the Chargers, and that's a team that when you and I talked before, might have been on the other show on BFA. You're like, hey, watch out for the Chargers this year, or else. And the or else has already happened. As a matter of fact, this was a crazy stat. Let me make sure I get this right. I took a picture of it to make sure I referenced it. The Chargers are the 33rd team in the Super Bowl era with 50 or more points and no turnovers through 2 games. They're the only one to start 0-2. If that ain't the most Chargers stat I've ever heard, I don't know what is. Brandon Staley, very affable, very amiable. Brandon Staley was very short with the media. Not on Sunday, he wasn't. Don't tell him there's a hangover from the Jacksonville loss. It's like, are the Chargers coming apart? Is it already panic time, or is there, I guess, a silver lining here, or turn a frown upside down, given how close both these losses have been?
I will quote Keenan Allen, and I think this is pretty accurate. I think he said, obviously something is missing. And I think that is actually an accurate quote about this team. You've had, 4 straight losses now by less than 3 points, right? Where it's just like you can't break through, take hold, and win games that matter. And to me, as you said, seeing Staley's demeanor, where he's telling everyone what doesn't matter, this doesn't matter. He's short. He's clearly annoyed. That's not his stock in trade, right? Like don't lose that cool. That is your trademark. That is what makes you who you are. And he feels like he's starting to lose it a little bit. And again, I will just say top to bottom. And I think we talked to this from on Brother from Another. I as talented as this team is, when you go top to bottom, how almost every area of the depth chart you see top end, either above average starters or stars. You can't start off 0-2 and in this fashion, where it feels like you just simply cannot get yourself over the hump here. And I hate to, start talking about, like, could this coach be fired or not? We're 2 games in.
We're 2 games in, but Charles, going into last year,
it feels familiar.
I had a Chargers executive last year in the beginning of the season say it's put up or shut up time. We know what happened in the playoffs against Jacksonville,
right.
And the Chargers feel like the NBA consolidated into one NFL team. As in, if there was a players team, it's the Chargers, because everybody been paid. So who's the fall guy? You know what I mean? There's only one fall guy in that building, right? Or 2, if you want to go even higher than Brandon Staley.
See, I don't. Again, it's not to protect any GM or anything, even front office executives. The talent is there. No one disagrees about that. Everyone, you talk to anyone around the NFL, they look at the Chargers, but what they will tell you is, okay, when I was on a camp tour this summer, and I'm going through these different teams, and I'm talking at one point to a general manager who's, we're talking about different teams, and we're talking about the Chargers. And the thing he said to me is, what's so concerning to me about that team when I look at it is that defensively, they just feel soft. They feel like they have a softness to them. And your head coach is a defensive specialist. Right. Yeah, that's his calling card. You can't have someone come in. He said it's always concerning when you have a head coach, a man who's meant to lead the entire franchise. He said, look, and look, he may not be leading the offensive, meeting. He may be delegating authorities, all these different things. He said, but when you have someone that's their calling card, if you don't see some signs of life in that unit or they're heading or trending in the right direction, it should be really concerning to you, regardless of the injuries, because there's a mentality that they bring. If your mentality offensively is to be aggressive, to be fast, to have good tempo, you can do that even with backups. Okay.
Yeah.
Defensively, if your mentality is just hit people in the mouth, don't let up, pressure, whether it's how you scheme things, you can still do that with backups. And he said specifically about the Chargers, he said they just defensively, they don't feel like they bring the kind of tenacity and fear to the table that realistically they should. And now here we are still talking about this. So,
well, no, and that's what I mean. Like, that's what I mean when I say it's a players' team. Like, the talent is there; they've all been paid. Like, the only reason they would go all the way up to Telesco would be if they just cleaned house, or the right coach wanted the job, and they said, "I want my own personnel guy." But I'm with you. It just feels like 2 games in, Brandon Staley is on the same hot seat that he was in after last year's collapse against Jacksonville.
No question.
In the interest of time, I want to go through some other 0-2 teams. 0-2 teams that had higher expectations. I'm not going to count the Cardinals. I'm not going to count the Texans. And just pick out the one you want to talk about. Again, just in the interest of time. Patriots 0-2, but for the first time since 0-1. But that feels like a different 0-2 because it's 2 really good teams, and they've been close. But it's still the Patriots, and still surprising nonetheless to a certain extent. Bengals started 0-2 last year. Burrow looked better in the second half. If you want to pick them, we can. Vikings have lost 6 fumbles in 2 games. Maybe they're regressing to the mean as far as luck. Justin Fields looks awful and sounds just as bad in his post-game press conference, depending on who you ask. And then there's the one that jumped out to me, the Broncos. And you got Sean Payton bringing up the wristband and, getting the play in properly with Russell Wilson. And he was supposed to, and they lose to the 2-0 Commanders. They collapsed against the Commanders. It was a big lead to the Commanders. So out of all those teams that are 0-2, and Pittsburgh, as of this recording, still hasn't played, they may be 0-2, depending on the outcome against Cleveland on Monday Night Football. Which 0-2 team should be the most panicked at this point?
I'm going to hit three. I'll hit them all real fast. Cincinnati.
You got it.
I'm worried because you're in the AFC North. Burrow is not healthy. The calf clearly was re-injured in that game. He's limping badly. And you've already dropped two in the AFC North, which looks rough as hell this season. Okay. They're out of sorts. This does not feel like last year's 0-2 start. Okay. The Bears, it's caving in quickly. If there is a coach that I thought is on the hot seat next to Brandon Staley, it's probably Matt Eberflus, because it does not feel like what the Bears tried to do around Justin Fields has taken hold. Now, again, we're 2 games in, but it's extremely concerning that looks like regression versus taking a step forward. He looks like he is regressing right now. And the Broncos, to me, when I went through there, I can tell you this, everything with Russ and Sean Payton was about Sean imparting into Russ, tempo, know the offense inside and out, be prepared, be fast, be clean, let's move. Don't screw up. You know, you have to know this inside and out. Guys have to look at you knowing you know the offense inside and out. And it just, everything has to be precision and fast. Don't around. And right now, I think that's what Sean is frustrated about. Going to the wristband, which when you go to the wristband, it's suggestive that you don't know the whole offense right now, or else you don't need a damn wristband. Okay?
Right.
So that's when,
remember Pete Carroll talked about him resisting that in Seattle. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, that was it. I mean, like, you know, if you have to have the wristband to know the offense, fine. You just better be able to operate with it quickly. If you're not going to have the wristband, you better know everything you're doing, and everything's got to be fast. And it's just, it's concerning right now that when you watch the Broncos, you still feel like you're questioning, does Russ know how to win in this roster, in this situation, and with this coach? That has to turn around quickly, because it'll get a lot worse fast in Denver after last season.
And that's the opposite. And by the way, they were a Hail Mary miracle away from not even, well, it took a Hail Mary miracle to keep it interesting. And surprise, surprise, the Sean Payton team did not get a PI call. Started to bring up old stuff. But I was going to say, like, that's the opposite of the Chargers as far as, like, there's no, like, you can't go from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton and it be the system's fault or the coach's fault. Like, Sean Payton was supposed to fix all the problems, but it put the blame squarely on Russell Wilson if things don't turn around for that Broncos offense. So, yeah, that's the one. Those are the two I would pick out as well. So the Bengals, you're right. That looks like a really tough division, and it's not quite the same as last year. You can't count on digging yourself out of that hole every single year. I still don't want to quite panic about them just because of the amount of talent and the quarterback, whereas Chicago and Denver, the quarterback questions have not been answered yet. All right, now to the positive side. We talked about the Cowboys, who we know are for real based on their body of work in recent years. The other game that to be played tonight, which there could be a 2-0 team and an 0-2 team, is Saints-Panthers. We thought the South was the worst division in the league coming into the season. You may have 3 2-0 teams after tonight with the Falcons, the Bucks, and maybe the Saints. Saints we thought could be good with Derek Carr and that defense. Bigger surprise to you, Atlanta or Tampa?
It's got to, man, that's a good question, because I would say Tampa, because and I'm still reticent to have faith in Baker Mayfield. I'm sorry. I just am. He's been through so many teams so quickly that needed a quarterback, that needed to make this work. And yet he has gotten off to a pretty clean and comfortable start, which is surprising to me, to be honest with you. Now, Mike Evans is balling out, okay? And there are a lot of veterans on that Tampa team that I discounted because I was like, look, if you're not right at quarterback, you just are not going to be right. Baker has made them right so far through 2 games, right? So that to me is more surprising. I think Atlanta, look, we can say whatever we want about Atlanta, but you know, Arthur Smith's been competitive with Atlanta through 2 seasons. Okay. Like, it wasn't like Atlanta was 3-13, 3-14. You know, there has been a competitive element to him, and he's calling the offense the way he wants to call it. You know, you go back to the Tennessee experience. He is clearly leaning into what he knows. and there's a lot of talent on that roster. Unfortunately, for some people, I think it's getting frustrating because they're saying he needs to augment the offense to consider some of the talent that he has, a la Drake London, Kyle Pitts, some of the explosive elements, Bijan, give it to Bijan as much as you can. I'm less surprised though by then because let's be honest, offensively, even if you think Desmond Ritter's got a pop gun arm, look at the surrounding talent, right? Look at the skill positions. Yeah. Are we not impressed by the skill position?
Yeah. No, I would agree. And with Tampa, it's like there was always this thought that I could see it with Baker. Because they weren't that far removed from being a playoff. Man. Well, this is because of the circumstances. He had the skills, talent. The offensive line was a question, but defensively, they got guys. They got guys on defense that have been there, done that, and gotten the T-shirts. So it's not completely shocking that Tampa would be competitive. 2-0 against the Minnesota win was the one that surprised me. We talked about Chicago's problems. We'll see how long it lasts. Atlanta's going to be problematic for people, even if they're sort of one-dimensional on offense, because when they try to go to that second dimension, they got a couple of guys that could hurt you in London and Pitts when they decide to get on the ball. And for that matter, Bijan Robinson. Couple of significant comebacks in the NFC East I want to hit with you too. That we're now looking at 3 2-0 teams in the NFC East, and the Giants have a win now. It didn't look like it through 6 quarters. But which comeback was more significant between the Commanders under Sam Howell, who have new ownership and are still looking for that long-term answer at quarterback, Washington is, or the Giants? Because, whatever the hell Brian Daboll said at halftime, bottle that shit up. Because, that might have been season-saving. Even though they're going to San Francisco, I'm going to see him on Thursday with the hobbled, if unavailable, Saquon Barkley. So bigger comeback between the Commanders and the Giants.
It's the Giants. Come on, man. I literally drop, and I hate dropping the clips in my feed that cuss, but I had to use the Rick and Morty. Get your shit together. Get it all together. Put it in a backpack. Get your shit together. To me, I was like, that's the halftime speech that was just delivered. Yeah. No, it's the Giants because of the way the Giants lost in week 1, right? And then the first half looked like a continuation of that. That's what it felt like. We were just like, oh my God, is this what the Giants are now? And I'm thinking at halftime, in my mind, I'm like, okay, what are they going to do at quarterback? What are they going to do with this contract? Yeah. I'm looking at Daniel Jones' contract. You
blowing it up. No, you were blowing it up for them.
Yes, I was
Saquon Barkley's gone.
At the numbers. Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm like, okay, how would Caleb Williams fit in the scheme? Brian Daboll. I literally I'm thinking all this stuff. And then as I watched it in the second half, and you saw them start to pick up some momentum. Now, again, I'm going to guard against this, although Arizona has played tough. I'll give it to Arizona because everyone said, they're just, that's it. They're canceling the season. Arizona through 2 games has shown fight. Those guys have some pride. They're playing tough. But that second half,
there were a lot of succession jokes. A lot of Kendall Roy for Jonathan Gannon references. Whatever he's saying, he got him playing hard.
Yeah. And yet the Giants needed that so badly. You can't go into an 0-2 hole, particularly if that second half had been how the first half was. It's mayhem. People are like, what are we doing here with Barkley? Then, with the Barkley injury late in that game, which has got to be extremely frustrated. Daniel Jones, how do we get out of this contract? Why did we go get Darren Waller, who's this old? Let's sit back and look at our draft picks. It would steamroll into what's wrong with the front office, what's wrong with the veterans, what's wrong with these contracts, and they reversed all that in half, which is remarkable.
I feel you because of how bad it was through 6 quarters, especially.
You're gonna disagree with me. You're gonna disagree.
well, it's a healthy disagreement. Only it's subtle because you're not wrong. Obviously, it was historic beatdown in the opener against Dallas, with again San Francisco on the horizon. So they outscored 60-0 through 6 quarters. Looking at a loss to quote unquote tanking Arizona, then going to San Francisco on a short week. You were absolutely right to start thinking ahead to 24 for the Giants. But on the flip side, the only reason I would say Washington is you want to talk about hot seat. Ron Rivera coming into this season, like,
yeah,
that was a guy that people looked at and said, okay, there could be a change, especially with an ownership change. Finally, mercifully, Eric Bieniemy, we know the story with him and getting passed over year after year for head coaching opportunities. A lot to prove with the Commanders in terms of just his overall reputation as an offensive mastermind. They struggled with Arizona last week. And the revolving door at quarterback, the Giants, for better or worse, have their quarterback. And there was some expectation for a little bit of regression because we didn't think they were that good last year. Whereas Washington, so you're right, the Giants had a lot to lose. To me, Washington had more to gain by its comeback against Denver. Like, because I'm a Sam Howell guy. I've been a Sam Howell guy, man. I drank the Sam Howell Kool-Aid at North Carolina. So if they found their quarterback, and an offensive identity in Eric Bieniemy, with that defense, the Commanders might be able to make some noise. So that was the one for me, was watching Sam Howell continue. This is his third start, and he's making some big time throws. Some real. Yeah. They might have their guy. If they got their guy, everybody else's job becomes easier.
Well, not only that, I'll say this about Washington too. It is certainly not an organization bereft of talent. There's a lot of talent actually on that roster. The skill position pieces around Sam, like Scary Terry, Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson.
Let's not even talk about the defensive line.
Yeah, now you can get to the defensive line, which is nothing but first round picks. And if they could actually squeeze something out of Jake Young consistently.
Yeah.
No, it is certainly an organization that if they're last year's Giants, okay, if they're a team that comes out of the NFC East soup and makes a playoff run, if you compared those two teams, it's not the empty jelly-filled donut. I actually think if you get Washington to the playoffs with this roster, the roster's pretty young and pretty talented. And you're sitting there going, if we solve the quarterback spot here, now we can just start adding to this. And we actually have something real here and legitimate and lasting. Whereas the Giants, I was kind of like, certain pieces and parts, yes, but there still feels like there's something a little worrisome about this. I'm not against
Howell. He's 22 years old.
Like Howell, to me, I'm sorry, I don't understand how I could go the year before his last season in North Carolina and I'm having evaluators telling me like top 10 pick, here's all these things to love about him. And then 1 year later, I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, I've never seen a guy fall off that fast. He's making plays out there right now that remind me of the guy everyone loved, personnel-wise. Like, didn't have the biggest arm in the world, but he was very competitive. He was athletic. He was very, he could do things off script. That's kind of how he's playing right now. So it's good. I guess between the two teams, who is going to lose their minds quicker, the Washington fan base or the Giants fan base?
I don't know if there's a wrong answer there. The answer is yes. Yes. For better or worse, they're going to lose their minds. Speaking of fifth-round picks, man, maybe the individual story of this season so far is Puka Nacua. Off to a start that no receiver has ever had. I don't think it's just, Cooper Kupp's not there, so they got to throw it to somebody. It's like, yes, throwing it to somebody, and then there's 35 targets. Like, it's not the receptions. It's the kid. Oh, you ain't telling me I drafted him in Dynasty. You might have told them. I drafted him in Dynasty, so I was on Puka. I was on Puka in the offseason.
I told you when I went in, when I went through Rams camp, and that was early, super early. And I asked the same question I always ask. I'm like, I'm going to go out and watch these guys on the field. Who should I be looking at? Like, what young guys are popping? And I barely got it out of my mouth. And I'm talking across the board, everybody I talked to inside the Rams, right? Les Snead, Sean McVay, other coaches, players. It was Puka. Puka Nacua, you got to see this kid. As someone said to me, he has been in Cooper's hip pocket since the second he got here. And to me, one of the things that was so prominent in what they loved about him was he just wanted to absorb every single thing he could get out of Cooper. And then when you looked at him, he's athletically gifted. They're like, there's also, so I was like, what happened? Like, how does this guy end up where he ended up? And the response I got was they couldn't keep him on the field. He was hurt like all the time. And that's sort of, I think, what they feel like they need to bridge in the NFL is just keeping him healthy and on the field.
Because 35 targets, man, like it says, like it's not like Tyler Higbee's not out there. It's not like Skoranic's not out there, or Van Jefferson, or Tutu Atwell, guys who have been around the system, who've been around Stafford. For this dude to come in and command that much attention from his quarterback really speaks volumes. Trust, maturity. Yeah. Like I think I don't think he's a flash in the pan. I think this is legit.
No way.
I think he can be. Yeah, I think he can be good for a long time. He can stay healthy, like you just said.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, Mike, I would question it if you got to go watch when you watch him in person, and you see just how good he is athletically. He pops when you watch him on the field. It's not a gimmick. Like he's doing this off of talent, not just off of scheme.
Last thing before I let you go on the Rams, who were last week's darling, I should say. What's up with this Cam Akers situation, man? Like, it's like what do he and Sean McVay have going on? Like this on again, off again affair that they've had the last couple of years. Now he's on the way out for real this time.
So here's the thing: I think you got to understand about the Rams, right? It is a team that has a lot of young players, right? I mean, they are loaded up with young players. They basically just reloaded the entire roster with younger guys. And I think when you sit there and you think about what practice has to be like, what classroom work has to be like, what meetings have to be like, you have to set a tone, particularly with veterans who have been there. You practice hard. You have good weeks to practice. You finish all your plays. You're there. You're present. You're in the moment. How you're communicating with coaches. You have to show up to meetings on time. You have to be there 100% to make sure you are setting the example you need to set for these young guys. I think they felt like Cam was not having good practices. I think they felt like there were aspects of what was going on, fell into habits last season that they were upset about. They thought they were past when they, quote unquote, gave him another chance last year after they tried to trade him. And so I think they're trying to basically clean up a little bit of the culture in the franchise for the younger guys. These guys come in, they have to see when they look around, who are we reading cues off of? These guys all have to be in practicing hard, doing everything they can. It's part of why,
Puka
Stetson
Nacua.
Bennett, another reason. Puka Nacua, right. Puka Nacua goes and absorbs everything from Cooper Kupp, wants to be, work out there, but he's looking at Cooper Kupp, right? You don't. And so then they start to look at other players and they're saying, okay, is the guy behind you, how hard is he practicing? Is he flashing? Is he showing an ability to eat some of your workload? Should we give him a look? And that's ultimately, I think, what happened at the running back position. And then, another thing too, no one's talking about, but like Stetson Bennett. I mean, I think part of the reason why Stetson Bennett got sat down was because, again, they need everybody to be on their P's and Q's. Like, you just got to be there. You got to be making meetings on time. You got to be like, if you're not meeting every standard that they set, they can't continue to give out chance after chance after chance, and then see other guys, young guys, look at it and go, oh, that's just how it is here. Like, I can screw up and screw up and screw up, and they're just going to keep giving chances. No, at some point there's a line, and the standard's got to be set. All these young guys got to meet that standard.
I like that. Charles, you set the standard, brother. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for just emptying a notebook every Monday, man. It's my favorite thing to do in the week. Talk to you next week.
Yeah,
hopefully. Where you at next week?
I don't know yet, but I promise you I will not, A, be coming from a residence inn with a terrible internet connection. Okay. And B, by the way, I'm sure people are going to be like, are there dogs in the background of that guy's audio?
Was that housekeeping?
Well, Dawn's in New Jersey, so I had to bring the dogs with me on this trip. So they're in the hotel with
you got dogs on the trip? Oh,
the dogs are on the trip.
Stokely's right there, man. They could have came. I didn't realize. Okay, no, I thought you were at the hotel. Somebody was knocking on your door.
No, they're two bad boys. They're barking at people out. You know, if somebody walks by talking in the hallway, they go crazy. They're like, it's, you know, murderers. Like, I'm like, they're just people. There's
that is
nobody gonna hurt 'em.
dedication. You took the dogs on a trip. God bless you. All right, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, man.
My main man, Vincent Goodwill from Yahoo Sports and the Good Word with Goodwill podcast from the Ball Don't Lie Network is here now. My brother. I'm not in a good mood, Goodwill, right now, because, we never talked about this. Did you watch Winning Time on Max, on HBO Max? Did you watch Winning Time?
I was addicted to Winning Time. That was like appointment viewing for me every Sunday. Bruh, Michael Smith. I'm not happy. I'm not happy.
I'm devastated. Well, for one, I'll say, okay, I'm actually kind of encouraged. I'll do the side note first, and then we'll get to Winning Time. I'm actually encouraged.
Okay.
Here's why I'm encouraged.
Okay.
Because, I got my production company going. I'm creating content. I'm trying to sell content, and, or just as talent, as you and I are. Like, we often deal with rejection, which I like to say rejection is really redirection. But somebody told me a long time ago she was an actress, but I think it applies across contexts. Like, being an actress is not about, or an actor is not about how many times you hear yes, but how many times you could stand hearing no. So the encouraging part for me, watching Winning Time get canceled after 2 seasons, is that if they could cancel that, I can't take no personally. Like, it's like, you know what? Like, who knows what people are looking for or why things work or they don't in this entertainment industry, this changing landscape that we're all trying to navigate, because that was some of the best, not just sports content or television that I've ever watched. That was some of the best television, period, that I've watched in a long time.
It's funny. We haven't really discussed this even like offline.
No, not even offline. No.
And I've discussed it like with some of my close friends who know like of the story, but don't know necessarily get in the weeds of all that stuff. So they don't know what's fictionalized versus what's, biographical. But man, I was looking forward. I don't know about you. I was looking forward to seeing how this evolved through the rest of the 80s, through Magic and its HIV, through, okay.
Well, remember, that's how they led off the series.
That's how they led off the series.
The first scene was his diagnosis.
Dude, the fact that they gave us this tease, and I felt like some people thought it was going a little slow from season 1. Mm-hmm. And once it got its rhythm in season 2, and some people were saying, well, the West Head thing went a little too long. And I'm like, no, that was like, y'all remember The Wire? Season 2 for The Wire set up everything.
It was necessary.
You know what I mean?
Correct. It was foundational.
It was necessary. So I felt like this season was very foundational to what was going to happen for the rest of quote unquote Winning Time. And man, I was just hooked by it. I was amazed. I don't know if you've seen it because you're not on Twitter as much. Jeannie Buss went from being this person who was not endorsing it to Jeannie Buss being all in.
Was she?
You know what I mean? Did you? She was.
No, I didn't know that. But I knew how it started. It started with everybody being pissed about their portrayal, led by Jerry West, and nobody was on board with it. I think the Lakers even kind of did their own content about the dynasty, almost like counter programming. So Jeannie got on board with this because I liked her character in Winning Time.
Jeannie got on board so much that she was part of an interview with one of like the showrunners like last week, and wanted to run into the guy who she said she ran into John C. Reilly at a Lakers game last season,
and
who played Dr. Buss, and he thought that she was going to throw him out, and nothing like that happened. You know what I mean? And she was, I think for her, it was kind of somewhat therapeutic to see her father portrayed in a certain form. And I think that's kind of how she played it. And she was saying on Twitter that she was going to be very curious to see how everything played out. Then you hear Rick Fox saying, hey, is this going to go to the Shaq and Kobe Lakers? And I think it kind of got to the thing where everybody was wondering, okay, if it gets this far, who's going to play me? And what is it going to look like? And you know what I mean? Like not necessarily narcissistic, but very curious to see how people were going to be portrayed, because I think after the initial shock of it and characterization, I think people really start to warm up to it. Like I was hooked from day one, Mike. I was hooked from day one.
Same. And you being a basketball historian the way you are, Like I'm surprised again. I'm shocked we never talked about it because I knew it would resonate with you because whatever was sensationalized, and it was based on Showtime by Jeff Pearlman. Whatever was sensationalized, you quickly forgave because it was rooted in enough truth. And even if it was exaggerated truth, the performances were so compelling until it was hard not to say, you know what? I don't care what's a lie. I'm invested in this. I want to give a few people flowers before we kind of go down this rabbit hole. And I didn't even anticipate talking with you about this, but I woke up really with my heart was heavy right now because I really enjoyed this series for these 2 seasons, and it left me wanting more, and it got better as it went along. It wasn't one of those where it was like, okay, it's starting to kind of like slow down or fizzle out. It got better and better. Season 2 took it to another level, episode by episode. Just shout outs. Okay, so we have Max Bornstein and Jim Hecht, it might be. Those are the writers and creators along with, I mentioned Jeff Pearlman, Rodney Barnes, Benjamin Klein. Like, there were so many people who deserve credit for this hit. But then even some of the directorial credits. You know, Sally Richardson Whitfield of Posse fame directed 5 episodes, including the finale, I believe. But then the cast. Yep. You mentioned John C. Reilly as Jerry Buss. I love John C. Reilly. He nailed Jerry Buss. Quincy Isaiah, who I know personally and actually have a little bit of a relationship with. Yeah. Okay. Dude, if you know Quincy Isaiah, he didn't play Magic Johnson. He played himself. That's how that dude really is in real life. And Magic, I don't know if Magic has been on record or not, about Quincy's performance. He was fantastic. Jason Clarke as Jerry West. Hadley Robinson was J.D. Buss.
Adrian Brody as Pat Riley. Come on now.
Devon Nixon as Norm. Solomon Hughes as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We could go all the way down the list with this series, like, set the bar for dramatization when it comes to, like, you know, and that's what's so frustrating. Honestly, that's so frustrating about why it didn't work. Because what better IP is there? Everything right now in entertainment in Hollywood is about IP. Well, when it's not on strike. But, you know, IP. Like, it's the NBA. It's the Lakers dynasty. It's Magic Johnson. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's Pat Riley. It's Jerry Buss. It's the Celtics. Jason Segel, as Paul West said, by the way. Brilliant portrayal.
Yes.
Sean Patrick Small as Larry Bird. I was in on Larry Bird. Right? I wasn't on the Celtics aspect because you can't tell a Lakers story without the Celtics story, and they recognize that. And they gave you the depth on the Celtics angle of it. The Boston of it all. Bro, I'm hurt right now. I'm honestly devastated that I'm not going to get more.
I don't think this is over. I'm hoping this isn't over.
Think somebody will pick it up?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's too many, I wonder if social media becomes like this like cyclone of we care about it way too much. But I see a lot of people talking about it. And it's hard for me to get an angle on Twitter being like indicative of, the world at large, so to speak. But
or the executives making the decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. And Michael Chiklis playing
Red Auerbach. Yeah.
I thought,
that's another one.
I thought it was massive. Some Red Auerbach, someone I've never met, right? But I feel like a lot of these people, their essence was captured. Remember Wood Harris playing Spencer Haywood in season 1.
I had him on my main man. It was powerful. Yes, thank you for shouting that out. Yes.
So and the funny thing was, I didn't read the book.
Sally Field as Jessie Buss. You want to talk about an all-star cast? They had an all-star cast even in cameos.
And let's not forget, if I remember correctly, HBO thought about canceling The Wire like after season 1 or 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? So
that sounds familiar. Speaking of Wood Harris,
you know what I mean? They haven't always made the best editorial decisions when it comes to some of these shows. And you're right.
Real quick, I had a show that I sold to HBO, a scripted series that I sold to HBO Max a couple of years ago. Another side note. That was the thing that kind of let me know, like, I could do this. But in the evolution of the company, the merger and what have you, they released a lot of content, and so they had to, not even cancel it. The show hadn't even been done yet. It was still in development. But now watching this show get canceled, again, not that I needed affirmation or validation, and not to make it about me, but I'm saying like, damn, nobody's safe because this shit was good. You were saying, Vinny, go ahead.
Not only was it good in this a different two different parts. A mutual friend of ours who knows the business really well said because it's a period piece, it is a lot more expensive.
Very expensive. Did you see how they recreated the basketball? Felt like I was watching the 80s finals again. They recreated it to a
the
T.
quality of it
is very expensive. Yes.
Some of those shots of the Boston Garden, you know, a place that no longer exists in the form that it exists. Like I get that part about it being, you know, expensive to make, but I feel like the return.
And that's what the business is. Everybody's tightening their belts nowadays.
Especially in terms of the strike, nobody could actually promote winning time. So a lot of it was a cult following. A lot of it was people who were in on, you know, year one coming back to year two. Secondly, and this is just a Vinny frustration, all the metrics we got.
Pistons.
Well, there was a Bill Laimbeer mention. There was a Bill Laimbeer mention with Larry and Georgia Burke, which let me think, all right, we gonna get to some Detroitness here. You know what I mean?
They would cut it off before the Pistons got their time. What was the Vinnyism? I'm sorry, what was it?
But the Vinnyism is because we can't measure Nielsen being who they are, streamers being what they are. We can't measure exactly who's watching what, or we do know and we don't see the numbers. Like there's got to be a more accurate way of measuring who's watching what, because I don't know about you, Michael Smith. I've never had a Nielsen box. I don't know what a Nielsen box looks like. I don't know anyone who has a Nielsen box. So we're trusting a lot of people to tell us who is and who are not watching these shows, especially because I don't have HBO Direct anymore. I have HBO Max. How would you know that I'm watching the show? You know what I mean? So I'm very curious to see. I think it's kind of outdated. I know that's a completely different discussion than what we're having, but I think all that stuff is outdated, and I think it leads into, you know, how these decisions are being made because of the metrics that are being used. And you know what I mean?
You hitting home. Like, I feel like I've been ahead of the game in this regard, if I may say so. I've never paid attention to ratings. And I know for some that joke may write itself, but I've never paid attention to ratings because I never wanted to. It's like you're hitting a moving target. It's like, well, wait a second. This segment or this show did well, but it wasn't a good show. Why did it do well? Was it the lead-in? Was it because we talked about this topic? And there are people more sophisticated than me at this. I recognize that. But just anecdotally and from a personal experience standpoint, it's like I just always trusted that I know good content and I know what's good. I know what it's supposed to look like. And that's how I've always approached it, because I never wanted to kind of ride the wave of what day's show or what segment or what conversation did well, because you're never going to figure that out. And I don't think anybody actually has, to your point. I mean, I'm also, obviously I work for Amazon, and you know, there's a conversation about Amazon having its own internal measurements being used, right? Point being is, I'm with you. Like, I don't think people actually have figured out how to measure what constitutes successful content or successful programming, especially as it relates to the cost benefit analysis that you just referenced, how expensive it was to make this. And so that's why I think it's just disappointing when you see something that is objectively quality, that it goes by the wayside, hopefully temporarily. But the Pistons thing, like, where this could have gone is so exciting, because it's like, even if it just went through the early 90s, now you're talking MJ. Now you're talking MJ. Like, you know, now you're talking not just the Pistons dynasty, you know, which you so aptly said, Isaiah Thomas's trophies have Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan's blood on them. I love that bar from you. But it's Pistons, it's the Blazers, for crying out loud. There were just so many different ways they could have taken this throughout the decade. It just was really disappointing to not see it come to fruition.
Just the compelling, like the 80s of the NBA, from a compelling theatrical standpoint of being able to blow the league up, and for the league to be able to establish itself with all these characters that the 90s wound up building on, even if the basketball wasn't as good. I felt like there's so much more meat on that bone. And if you remember, I'm sure you know Chris Herring from formerly of 538 and now SI. He wrote the book Blood in the Garden about the '90s Knicks.
Yep,
that would be an excellent sort of sequel to this,
right?
You know what I mean?
Because they mentioned Pat Riley.
You follow Pat Riley,
right? Because they mentioned Pat Riley's accomplishment. They skipped the Knicks executive part. They just went straight to 3 more rings with the Heat.
And I think, look, that ending left so much, you know what I mean? It left it feel like Boys in the Hood, where you see Doughboy just go and disappear into the daylight. You know what I mean?
Magic in a dirty ass shower. Yeah.
Yeah, like come on, man. Like, so I think I just think the compelling nature of the NBA during that period of time, like, let's be perfectly honest. There are some characters in the NBA now who can't wait to get their production company and make their own version of what they think winning time is, because they can't help but jump on the bandwagon. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever it is. But I just think, Michael, I think whether it's Apple TV or Your Shop Amazon or Peacock or whomever it is, someone, and here's the important thing, someone who is going to have NBA rights over the next couple of years would be very, very, very wise. Because one thing you notice, there were a lot of NBA signages and stuff like that the NBA really couldn't do anything about because of the Time Warner HBO merger, like, that they kind of had license to. So if you take that to Amazon, if Amazon gets a piece, or Apple gets a piece, or NBC gets back in, which we all kind of expect, why wouldn't you wait a year and then pick up on it? You'd already have the rights to use NBA logos, and you haven't heard the NBA speak out against it because quietly, I'm willing to bet the NBA likes it.
Nothing sells like nostalgia, and nobody ties things together better than you. And you took me right where I wanted to go, because I wanted to talk about what I believe was your latest work about the resting policy, the load management policy changes. And I also go back to a conversation you and I had on this here podcast when it came to Nikola Jokic and his reluctance to be a face of the league, so to speak, and all that entails. And we talked a lot about unto whom much is given, much is required, to kind of just summarize it. And like, this is what the game you didn't just find the game like this. Somebody had to build the game to this point, and it's your obligation to build upon what the Magics and the Birds and the Isaiahs and the Jordans did for the NBA, as well as their predecessors, right? And so we're talking about the 80s, and load management would have been a cuss word to these guys, who regularly played all 82 and found a way to survive a playoff grind. So when it comes to this load management conversation, I love how you contextualize it within a larger framework of NBA history and the obligation that these guys have to play. It is somewhat, I think even you said it, it is somewhat embarrassing that basically, like, it's down to, like, you got to work. And if you're not going to work, you got to call in and let us know you're not going to work, which basically we all can relate to. But, like, where does this go? Is this the end of this conversation? There's been a lot of talk about, like, shortening the season, which seems counterintuitive. If you're trying to, sell your broadcast rights for more, like, nobody's going to pay more for less. Where does this go?
You hit a bunch of nails, right? Like, it's like putting up a door. You know what I mean? You got to get every nail right, or else this door is going to fall. And for me, it's a little embarrassing that we have to have this conversation, not only as an NBA consumer, but for me as an NBA fan who's followed the game since I've been able to see. You know what I mean? So it's twofold. One, the NBA, the reason that they create this midseason or in-season tournament is because you don't have more product to sell, but you want to make it more valuable to whomever may be, coming in to create this bigger pie. A bigger pie that makes sure that a $15 million salary, which was the starting max. Think about this. $15 million was the starting max salary for the Miami Big Three in 2010. That was the starting salary for those three guys: Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh. Remember that it was around 50.
And I remember there was these conversations about making it fit. Didn't Wade have to take a pay cut even to get to that point?
Wade took a little bit less because he was eligible to make more, $15 million. And now, what is
that? The mid-level exception? What is it?
Exactly. And it wasn't that long ago. Like, you remember 2010. It's not that. And so not just the league being built off of Magic and Bird and everything else, but the fact that you're asking, or you have the ability to ask for max salaries that can start from $40 million or $50 million or whatever it is. And I am all about you getting your money. Get all of your money. Get every dollar you can. But you also have to understand and realize the responsibility that goes with that. And this is my biggest point of this. Michael, playoff basketball. I covered the playoffs for the last 2 years. You know, like literally traveling from city to city every other night. There were games every other night. And then sometimes you traveled on a day in between. You might not have an extra day. The playoffs, the old guys would tell me, the guys that I've done radio with or guys that I've talked to, whatever, those guys would tell me, the playoffs are actually supposed to be easier on your body. Because the regular season, the 3 and 4 nights, the Milwaukee one night, Toronto the next night, and all of
it gets you ready for the playoffs.
Yeah. It gets you ready. Like, if your first hard is the playoffs, then we're doing something wrong here. You know what I mean? If you're not used to playing every other day in the regular season, then how are you supposed to be able to be mentally and physically prepared to play every other day in the playoffs?
That sounds like science to me. What you just dropped sound like science to me. So what's this science that would argue with you on that?
Well, this is what I asked Commissioner Silver last week in New York. And I wasn't challenging him. I was just saying, as a media member, Michael, we were always told that the science determines whether a player should sit. And so I'm like, Adam, does that mean the science has changed? Does that mean that the science is false? Now, keep it in mind, the word science has been like a red herring in a bunch of different conversations outside of sports for the last few years. So I'm not challenging science in a way of like challenging a vaccine or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Let me put that disclaimer out there. But when you're talking about strength and conditioning staffs, and they're saying, or someone is saying, whether it's strength and conditioning, coach, player, agent, business side, whomever is saying that, because science can be under a bunch of different umbrellas, right? So you're telling me the science has changed? How has the science changed, Adam? How has the league determined that the science is changing so that players can no longer sit? There's fewer back-to-backs than ever. Teams who will play on national TV one night usually don't have a game the night before because the league doesn't want teams to have the excuse. So what is it? And he said, look, honestly, we were told that was that we were letting the science determine it. So, Michael, I think what has happened is two things. One, and you know this from being an AAU coach, players come into the league with more tread on their tires than ever before, right? And also, absolutely anything can absolutely corrupt. Absolute control, absolute empowerment, no matter what it is, no matter how far the pendulum is swung, if there's no checks and no balances, then people will take the limits and go further than they should. And I think at some point, the responsibility to the game has to come. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It makes dollars and cents. It's like your question was apt because it's like, no, the science didn't change, and there's probably still people who feel like, you know, load management is the best way to have your players healthy and at their best come playoff time, even if their bodies aren't conditioned to withstand the rigors of the postseason. But the difference is, it's like, oh no, we got some more money to be made here. And we're about to go to the negotiating table, and we're not trying to have somebody sit across from us saying, yeah, but why would I pay this if I don't know that Steph Curry and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going to actually be on the air? Or am I going to actually be able to promote these people?
And here's the other part. Nobody's saying if you're hurt, go out. If you're injured, go out there and play. But you mean to tell me that, okay, I'll just put it like this. You don't see the eighth man out here load managing. right?
No,
Eighth man got to play.
It's total abuse. It's total abuse because it's
seven man got to play, right?
And it's a difference, if I may, it's a difference between the NBA and the NFL. And it's like when you got a fully guaranteed deal, it's like, oh, I don't feel like playing tonight. Because how much of these injuries or these low maintenance is like, yeah, I was hanging out last night, or I'm hungover. I was either hanging out or I'm hungover, or I just don't feel like it. I'm I'm tired, boss. Like I just don't feel like coming to work today. If you could do that, who's gonna stop you with your fully guaranteed contract? Who's gonna replace you?
Right. And here's my other part. Here's my other part to this. Players are playing longer than ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guys want to hold on as long as they possibly can. You're not entitled to play 20 years. You're not entitled to play 17 or 18 years. Like professional sports, it's a price that comes with it, and everything else, just like performing, just like doing anything, has some atrophy to it. And you walk into it knowing that. Like you can't walk in and say, you know what, I'm trying to preserve myself so I can play 5 extra years. Says who?
Yeah.
Nobody's entitled. You know what I mean? Nobody's entitled. Look, man, sometimes when the lights come on, you got to leave the dance floor, bro. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to.
Totally. No,
now you got me sounding like yes, a boss. You know what I mean? And that's not how I'm trying to come
that's
across.
not who you are. That's not who you are. It's not who either of us is. We are both pro player in pretty much every context, but we're also old school. Like, we both getting old. If anything, we sound like old men yelling at clouds. Yes, you know what I mean? Yes, it's like, so turn down that public enema, like maybe, but it's just, I think it's when you've seen, and also too, like I remember one of the best pieces of advice I ever got about doing this was about, Michael Jordan wasn't special because of what he did in Game 6. Michael Jordan was special for dropping 35 in Sacramento on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? And Michael Jordan's attitude was always, this might be somebody's only time getting to see me. So not only do I have to put forth my best performance, I'm gonna be dressed to the nines when I go. And so that type of mentality is such a relatable mentality to where when you see players, just take it for granted. And I think that was really your main thesis was across the board in your article I'm talking about, or your column.
Yeah.
It's like people just taking things for granted in general is where it becomes a turnoff. And the NBA doesn't literally want people to turn off these games at a time when they're trying to get people to pay more money for their product. So it's not science, it's profit.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
And last point I'll make. Nobody says because you have to play that you have to play 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like sometimes if you show up on
I remember them. I remember minutes limits. Remember those? I remember those. What did you used to manage your minutes?
Hey, how many minutes can you give me tonight, Kawhi? You know what? I'm not really feeling it. Let's play 25, and then we can, we can go from there. And if you need me later, that type of thing. But these people paid to see me, and there's only but so many guys we're talking about that you actually pay to see play. Yeah. And I feel like there is an obligation. Like nobody's paying, just because somebody's getting $200 million don't mean that everybody's paying to see you. You know what I mean? But
there's certain guys that drive the game, that drive the bus. That drive the bus that everybody is profiting off of. And it's like
that is a key saying that you're saying, bus driver. That's I got something for you. I got something for you a little later. Got something on bus driver. I'll text it to you.
Offline?
Yeah, offline.
Oh man, I'm intrigued. Okay, all right. Before I let you go, training camp's right around the corner, and I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, about 3 players. And I'm sure I could ask you about 1 million players, but I just asked you about 3 real quick. Mm-hmm. One, is anybody really going to trade for Kevin Porter Jr.? Like, is that juice worth the squeeze? Whatever the Rockets are looking for in draft compensation, worth the financial manipulation or whatever of his contract? It's like they just gonna waive this dude, right? Like he's done, right? Just want to
he should be, but there's always a weird team somewhere who thinks that they can rehabilitate somebody and everything else, even if the player.
They trading for him. Oh, they trade for him to actually have him on the team? I thought they were going to trade for him just for his contract or whatever, like just for the books and get the draft compensation as doing a solid to Houston. Somebody actually would trade for this dude to try to rehabilitate him?
I'm not saying somebody
or his image even.
I'm not even saying it from a position of knowledge. I'm just saying there's always weird things
one.
and
All
it
takes is one.
That's all it takes
is one. All right. I was really going to ask you about Harden and Lillard and how funky training camps get in Philadelphia and Portland, respectively.
Well, one person we know that does not mind being uncomfortable is Daryl Morey in Philadelphia, because he ain't got a coach and he ain't got to be out there, and the people business ain't exactly his business. One person who we know that does not mind making anybody uncomfortable is Mr. James Harden. Okay, he can.
So I know where you going.
Presence.
I know where you about to be for training camp.
maybe I'll pop up there for a couple days, but you know what I mean. I don't think that James would mind making things a little uncomfortable, making a stink. You know what I mean? Dame is in a completely different situation. And if I had to guess, I'm not speaking from a position of don't aggregate me or nothing like that, but if one deal was to get done out of those two, I'd probably say it would be Dame getting out of Portland before I would see James Harden getting out of Philly. Because there is a long-standing relationship that the Portland Trailblazers have to be able to maintain with Damian Lillard, because if you think of their two franchise players before here, Bill Walton, Clyde Drexler, you don't see those guys around that franchise. And there has to be some level of relationship when a player is done playing, especially if he's going to stay in that area and be a part of that community. You've got to be able to work through the hurt feelings and everything right now and say, look, what's best for us is what's best for you, and that's getting up out of here. And I don't think that the Trailblazers want to make it but so ugly with Dame. That's all. Yeah. That's what I would think.
Who knows? Maybe one day we'll be talking about a streaming series or wherever we watch content about James Harden or about failed experiments or player empowerment or Damian Lillard. But it still won't be as good as Winning Time. I'm sorry. I might go start it over from scratch. Me and you, we gonna watch it. We gonna text about it. I can't believe it's our first time talking about this.
We're gonna do a rewatch of Winning Time.
A rewatch,
episode by episode.
A rewatch requiem for Winning Time. There you go. My main man, Vincent
Goodwill. I loved
Goodwill.
Quincy Isaiah as Magic Johnson. He captured the essence of Earth.
Dude, he nailed it. They nailed Cookie. I don't even know these people, but I fell in love with them all. In a way that I didn't even as fans from afar. I'll introduce you sometime. That's Quincy Isaiah as a star, and that was no small undertaking to play Magic Johnson. Appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much. Hey, thanks so much for kicking it with your main man, Michael Smith. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, but also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Rate it, review it, tell your friends about it. Oh, and be sure to follow me on social media.